February issue of Obstetrics and Gynecology found that women in the military are experiencing unwanted pregnancies at double the rate of the U.S. average. So this is really interesting because, of course, a lot of them, since they're part of the military, they have access to medical care and they have access to contraceptives and all of that. So the reason why this is happening is because there is a stigma about being on birth control, because you have to go through, people that you work with in the military in order to get access to it. So a lot of them feel embarrassed about it and they don't do it. So I think, as with anything, you need more education. You need to find a way to get the stigma out of it. But just to give you guys the numbers, in 2008, 10.5% of women in the military experienced unwanted pregnancies. In 2005, it was 9.7%. So you can see there was an increase. The national average is much lower than that. It's 5.2%.
Yeah, it's huge disparity between the national average. So, so we talked about in the first hour, there's the issue of sexual assault and rape.
Yes.
That leads to more unwanted pregnancies. As you mentioned, the contraception issue. But I don't know if this is a controversial position, but I think there's a third issue. They're in tight quarters, especially if they're out in Iraq or Afghanistan or somewhere, and there aren't a lot of other people around in terms of choices. You can't go off base, and so I think they have more sex. Because men and women are intermingling in the forces.
That's probably true.
Yeah. Now, that doesn't mean that they shouldn't. It doesn't mean that women shouldn't be in the front lines. It's something that we have to be aware of. Obviously, number one on the list is get a real system of reporting rapes that doesn't punish the person rewarding it, that goes outside of the chain of command so they're not embarrassed or intimidated, etc. Second is get contraception everywhere. I mean, what are you, denying reality they're going to have sex? That's crazy talk. And don't stigmatize it and make it available.
Really, I don't know. When I was in the service, I mean, it's on offer for everybody from your unit medic. So I don't
But the difference might have been that, like, when you pick up a condom, they're like, "Hey, Wes, got him on." What are you gonna do?
Really? And women aren't like that now? At all?
I mean, one of the quotes in the article that Anna's referring to, they say like, "Oh yeah, here she is wanting the concept,"
It's, I mean, think about how male dominant the military is. So as a woman, it's already a little difficult to be a woman in the military, and then to talk about your sexual activity, it makes it even more difficult. So I could see how in that context it would be difficult. In the context of like this newsroom, it's like, okay, so women are on birth control, it's not a big deal.
Right. So it's a little bit different. And then the third thing is, I think we just got to live with it, right? I mean, what's the bigger downside? That you discriminate against all women in the country, and you cost the military a lot of good people who could help you win wars, whatever it might be, help the forces in all the different ways. That's a huge downside. Or the downside that, yes, there will be more sex and more unwanted pregnancies, sometimes in the frontline positions as well, when you put men and women in close proximity and they have no other choices.
But maybe that number went up because there were less women deployed in 2008 than there were in 2005. So there's more women that are home who are,
Yeah, and that's true too. I mean, and that might lead to even more pregnancy than the scenario that I'm setting up.
People get pregnant.
Right. Yeah. It turns out that we're kind of designed for that. Like, that's supposed to be the whole point.